Who do you want to see come here to the European Parliament after May? In our series of debates looking towards the European elections, we've heard from the main political parties in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Now time to look at Scotland. So MEPs from the four parties currently representing Scotland in the European Parliament join me now. George Lyon for the Liberal Democrats, Struan Stevenson for the Conservatives, David Martin for Labour and SNP Ian Hudghton. David Martin, what have you been doing for your constituents since the last election in 2009?
Well, as a group, the Socialist Group have pushed very hard to try and counter the austerity measures that the right wing of this Parliament has imposed upon Europe. So we've been pushing for a youth guarantee scheme, for example. We've been pushing to change the European budget towards investment, both in jobs and in infrastructure. In my own particular role as a member of the Trade Committee, I've been pushing hard to link Europe with the rest of the world, and that benefits Scotland and Scottish industry.
Ian Hudghton, your achievements over the last 5 years?
Well, the SNP continues to put Scotland first in this place, and over a large part of the last 5 years we've been heavily involved in reform of the common fisheries and common agriculture policies, for example, working with the Scottish Government in both of those which are crucial to Scotland.
Struan Stevenson.
The Conservative Party and the European Conservative and Reformist Group have been concentrating on trying to cut red tape. There's masses of it, which makes business and industry less competitive. Personally, in the Fisheries Committee, where I'm Vice President, I've had a personal input to the reform of the Common Fisheries Policy. I was rapporteur in one of the main legislative reports, and I think it will provide a good future for our fishermen.
George Lyon.
Well, the Liberal Democrat group in the European Parliament, along with the Liberal Democrats in the UK government, I think achieved the biggest reform of the budget, where we cut the overall budget by 30 billion, while at the same time providing more money to invest in jobs, education, transport, and tackling youth unemployment. On a personal level, I oversaw the reform of the CAP to ensure that Scotland gets its fair share out of that and gets the flexibility to deliver it. And I also ensured as a Vice President of the Budget Committee that Scotland will receive £6 billion of investment to create jobs and growth across Scotland in the next 7 years.
Ian Hudghton, this election is going to be seen as an important test ahead of the referendum in September. A big result in May would be a big boost for the pro-independence campaign.
Well, the SNP won the European election last time around, and it's our ambition to win the European election again. That would be our target. But of course, the issues involved in European representation are key to the independence argument. Why should a nation like Scotland not have the right to have representation here at government level, not to mention twice as many MEPs, which countries our size will be electing in these May elections. That's what normal independent countries have, and that's why they prosper in the European Union.
David Martin, Labour seem quite upbeat about their chances in this election for England and Wales, but in Scotland the opinion polls don't seem to be quite so optimistic.
Well, we rate our chances very highly. We've had 18 by-elections in Scotland for Council and Scottish Parliament, and Labour has won them all. We've had 18 in a row. So we're confident going into these elections, and we're confident these will give us an opportunity to expose the lies that the SNP have told about Scotland's continued membership of the European Union. Their simplistic approach to membership will be exposed during this campaign.
Struan Stevenson, as a Conservative, you have an awkward position between Westminster and what you might like to see in Scotland. How do you balance that?
Well, I think it's quite clear that Scotland has a key role to play here, but the independence campaign, which is going to figure very highly in the European elections, the SNP policy on Scotland's place in Europe has completely unravelled. There's no doubt at all that Scotland will have to apply to join the EU. That means we'll have to join Schengen. That means we'll have to have borders between us and England. We'll have to join the Eurozone. And we've got the Governor of the Bank of England telling us that now. So, I mean, it's completely unravelled. And I agree with David. We've got nothing but lies from the SNP on this.
What would be your advice then to your successor, Ian Duncan, your lead candidate?
Well, I'm very confident that Ian Duncan will do well and that the Conservatives will hold a seat here because it's necessary to have a centre-right political voice in the European Union representing Scotland. That's why, I've been in the Fisheries Committee for the past 15 years, one of the most important industries in the whole of Scotland. Ian has a big role to play.
George Lyon, this looks like it's going to be a difficult election for you. Some opinion polls place you 5th behind UKIP.
Well, I think we've got a challenge, but I believe we can hold on to our seat in Scotland. People are looking for a party that believes that we're better in the United Kingdom and in Europe. There are millions of jobs at stake. Those who want to wrench us out of the UK or take us out of Europe, the Tories and UKIP, they're putting millions of jobs at stake. And I believe that in terms of growth, in terms of future prosperity, people are looking for a party who believe that it's in our national interest to be in the United Kingdom and in Europe.
What would you say then are going to be the big election issues besides the referendum that Struan Stevenson mentioned already?
Well, at the heart of it, I think, is the whole issue of jobs and growth. We need to get Europe back onto the right track. We've already reformed, working with the UK government, reformed the budget to ensure that there's more investment going in to create jobs and growth. And one of the biggest risks we have is the threat of the SNP to wrench us out the United Kingdom and put in doubt our place in Europe, or indeed the UKIP and Tories who want to take us out of the European Union. These two are the biggest threats, I believe, to jobs and growth in Scotland.
And we'll get a reaction in a minute from the SNP, but Struan Stevenson, do you want to come back on that? Are you putting jobs at risk?
Quite clearly, the Tories are not threatening to take Britain out of Europe at all. In fact, David Cameron has said very clearly indeed that he's seeking major reforms of Europe, and Europe, God knows, needs major reforms. I am sure that with the backing of people like Angela Merkel, he will achieve these reforms, and then he will campaign for a yes vote in the 2017 referendum to keep Britain in Europe.
Ian Hudson, do you want to then respond to what the others are saying, looking towards the Scottish referendum?
You've heard here Project Fear in full flight. These parties would rather support each other in government in Westminster than do what's best for Scotland. It is complete nonsense to suggest that the European Union or the UK government, for that matter, would not accept a democratic outcome in a legal referendum, which is what we have in Scotland. Indeed, the Edinburgh Agreement commits the UK government to accept the outcome and to be joining with the Scottish government in making sure that our transition to normal independent status in the European Union will go smoothly, and I'm sure that it will.
What about other election issues then? Would you agree that jobs and growth is going to be one of the central themes?
Well, indeed, that's a key issue for Scotland, as the Scottish Government has demonstrated by doing all that it possibly can within the limited powers of devolution. But independence is about achieving for Scotland the powers that are necessary over the whole economy and income as well as expenditure, so that we can tackle at source the problems in Scotland that still exist.
David Martin, the referendum, jobs and growth, for you, what else is going to be important in this election?
Well, I agree jobs and growth are important, but connected to that has to be justice. And I want to make sure that workers' rights are continue to be defended at the European Union level, that bankers are made to pay for the crisis they created, in particular by capping bankers' bonuses and excessive behaviour by bankers. I also want to see the European Union do more collectively to tackle tax evasion. It's reckoned €1 trillion a year are missed in terms of possible tax take. That could cure the recession in itself. So justice has got to be at the heart of this debate, I think, and fairness at the heart of the European Union debate.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time. That's our look at Scotland ahead of these European elections. You can also find our debates on Wales, England and Northern Ireland on our website, along with a full list of the UK's current MEPs. And don't forget, voting day is Thursday, the 22nd of May, 2014.